Hello everyone. A very good evening and welcome to the third session of Website Making Challenge 2.0. And today's session is gonna be about React JS. And the speaker for the session is Kaushal Patil. He is currently an AI instructor at Shashwat Foundation. He was a full stack developer intern at CuratePad. He was a backend developer intern at Pedals Up, and he was also the head of Ingenium 2021. That was this year's Ingenium. So you must have seen him there in those events, and he really also takes keen interest in technology and music. So welcome Kaushal bhai. Over to you. We are looking forward for an amazing session. I mean, the first slide says it all.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that introduction. Hello everyone, I am Kaushal, and as Atman introduced me, actually I'm your senior. I will be in my fourth year this year. So yeah. So today's topic is obviously React.js, and React.js is one of the big JavaScript frameworks for frontend. And so, should I start? Should I start with the session, Atman?
Yes.
Okay,
please go ahead.
Great. So yeah, as I was saying, React.js, and so as the first slide says, you couldn't live with your multi-page websites. Where did that bring you? And that brought us to single-page applications. And React.js is one of the big guys that you use to create single-page applications. So yeah, so what will we be studying, or what will we be seeing today? So I designed this as a comic strip, so it's basically like reading a comic. So yeah, we'll talk about single page applications, obviously, and so do you see boxes on my screen, or is it okay? Because I have
there
kept
is
this.
a little box in the right bottom. Yes, at least I can see the chat.
Yeah.
Little chat box.
Okay, no issues. I just yeah. So if you have any queries, or I mean, yeah, let's keep this interactive. And when I say something, I want responses from you guys, or anything. Just start saying something in the chat, so I know you guys are here and listening, or like at least show some interest in the chat. So yeah, we'll be talking about single page applications. So these are basically applications that will load once at the start when you visit a website, and then you can sort of navigate in these applications without having to load pages again and again. And so I'll talk about these and the frameworks that we use to create these. Then obviously we have my man React.js, who is a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. Now, why have I written this? So I'll explain it. Then we'll see about how React works, like what React, how, and why. Then we'll see an example that I built, like I forked a repository and then I converted it to functional components. So yeah, we'll see that example, and then I'll show you other examples of React, and yeah, so we'll take this for a spin. So yeah, I'll start with SPA Avengers, so single page application Avengers, and in this we have three major frameworks. So those are React.js, and I have compared this with Iron Man, but yeah, it depends on your preference and your favorite superheroes. But yeah, then Vue.js. So Vue.js and React.js are kind of similar, but they have some different mechanisms of how they work. But yeah, at its core, they are both open source front-end frameworks that are used to create single-page applications. Then yeah, so I have compared this with Captain America, because that is sort of the relation these two have. Then we have Angular, and it is Google made, and I didn't know what superhero to compare to. Like if anyone who knows Angular is present in this session, let me know about Angular. I don't know much about Angular. And then we have Svelte, which is the new kid from the Queens, and like coincidentally, and this blew my mind, that the creator of Svelte is actually from New York City. So he might as well be from I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so these are the three frameworks, and we'll be talking about React. So what's the big deal about React? So yeah, React has been it has been used by many websites, and like if I visit a random website like searching on browser, it probably must be using React. So yeah, I mean, do you have any questions so far? Anything that I missed, or anything you would like to know more? Like, hello, come on, guys, send something in chat. Like, they have permission to chat, right?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, no need to be shy. This is not like our like a session taken by a professor or something. It's just your senior talking about something he works on. So we have your first question. What does these frameworks do in simple terms? Yeah, so in most simple terms, what you are doing is that you are creating an application and putting it online. So it's like if I open a React website, it is just like I'm downloading a very small application, and then the browser runs it for me. I don't have to keep reloading pages or keep getting new content for that application. New content as in the UI based content. So we'll explore this in more detail. But yeah, send your questions in chat. I'll do sort of this interactive Q&A while I teach also. So yeah. Yeah, coming to React.js, or my man React.js, who is a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. And why a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist? Because genius, because it is one of the most popular and widely used framework to build single page applications, and as I said, it is used by Instagram, Spotify, Facebook, and many more. So I think a lot, all the like most of my hacks use React because I got comfortable with React. And many of the startups in Ahmedabad that I have known to are using React. Some of them use Vue also. But I think if you learn React, you are at least bound to get one internship because it is very high in demand. Billionaire, because React is backed by Facebook, open source, and yeah, as I said, is one of the most in demand framework right now. And what I mean by backed by Facebook, open source, as in they have like a big community behind, and many of the Facebook engineers also work on React to improve it and to get it to the powerful framework that it is now today. Playboy, because yeah, clearly React gets all the girls and guys. Like, I'm not assuming React's gender or sexuality, but yeah, basically React gets all the people. And yeah, you should also, I mean, at least know what React is about, even if you don't decide to learn it. But yeah, anyways, you should know React and how it works. Then philanthropist, obviously it is open source, so like we use it for free, and it is like a big donation to us from those developers who have developed React. And all of us have used React, like me, my friends, most of our SE projects that we did this year, most of the groups used React. I don't remember anyone that has used something else. I mean, I don't remember if someone used Vue or Angular. Like people must have used like Java Swing or something like that. But those who created web applications used React. So yeah, that's the popularity of React in our college as well. So let's do a little this section that I call meme based learning, and it was obviously inspired by Daddy Elon. So yeah, I'll get the chat box here, and you can ask me anything about these memes, and obviously I'll explain these memes. But yeah,
We also have one question, which says that so React is the best among all the frameworks, right? So
I mean, it's just my opinion, and I would say that it is the best. But this depends on developer to developer. But React is obviously one of the best. And why? Because it is the most popular framework. It is used by most of the companies, and it has, I think, Vue beats React when we talk about GitHub stars, but React has a like React has more presence, as in like more developers contribute to React than Vue. But obviously, I can't confirm this fact. I am just guessing. But I know for sure that Vue beats React in terms of stars, but React is more popular, used by more applications in the world use React as a dependency, if I were to talk about it in technical terms. Are there any drawbacks of React that other frameworks fulfill? Obviously, there must be some drawbacks that other frameworks can fulfill, but this boils down to specificity of your use case. But I don't like, I haven't encountered any of such React drawbacks that would have made me want to switch to other frameworks. If anything, I just found like special points of React when I tried to explore like other things. So yeah, before we move ahead, I'd like to like, you talk about drawbacks, but I'd like to talk about some specialty of React. So the thing is, React is I was like exploring this thing called like cross-site scripting, and it's basically like what cybersecurity guys use to hack like something in cybersecurity, and it is basically how you can run malicious JavaScript on like the website. And funny thing, I was surprised to know that React is cross-site scripting proof. So if you use React like the way they have told in documentation and don't do any dangerous practices, like there is only one way that you can break React when we talk about cross-site scripting. So if you just stick to the basics, I mean, React is very safe. Like your websites are safer if you use React than a normal JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So yeah, that is there. Then I start with the memes. So this is the smart guy meme, and obviously this is that HTML doesn't need to load JS and CSS if HTML and CSS are in JS. So what this tells you is that React is a framework in which you can write CSS and HTML via JS. So what you have to do is you are just coding a JavaScript application, and you can use something called JSX. I'll type this in chat, and you can remember this name. JSX is the language that basically React uses to render HTML in when you write it in JavaScript. Then yeah, there's this thing called, I don't always use React, but when I do, I use create React app. So this tells you that whenever you start a React project, I hope you guys attended the JavaScript session, and I'm assuming that you have npm and like some npm experience or some Node experience. Like you know how to do npm create React app or something like that. So let me know if you don't, and I'll explain this. I have some time to explain that. But yeah, so create React app is something like these guys have designed, that basically it downloads the boilerplate code for React, and and you can just start coding your new application. Then yeah, these are some funny memes that I found on the internet. So front end with React. So obviously React is cool. I have been saying that a lot, but yeah. When you stare long enough into React, the React stares back into you. So you will realize this is true if you have coded like 3 to 4 applications, because sometimes it gets very complicated, and you need to use some other frameworks to simplify it. And so I also talk about how React has developed in the upcoming slides. So we'll realize this. This is just a funny meme. I won't explain this or talk about this because obviously it will confuse you. But yeah, as I was talking, like regarding internships and like developer jobs, if you are into that, like or if you just want to get some experience, and if you're interested in front end, I think React.js is a great start. Obviously, learn JavaScript first. Learn what are like functions, maps, and stuff like that. But yeah, you can learn React.js. So talking about me, I don't know much of JavaScript, and it is quite dangerous that I'm teaching React.js here. But if you were to learn it, I would recommend that learn JavaScript first and then React. But yeah, for me, it was like I wanted to create projects for hackathons, and I just skipped to React. And I knew enough JavaScript to get started with React. So that is also one option that you can take if you are like, if you want to get into full stack and you are mostly backend and front end both. But yeah, like if you want to focus on it, I'll recommend learning JavaScript, but you can start with React directly also, but it is dangerous. Yeah. So coming to how React works, I'll take some time here, and we'll be talking about technicalities of React. We'll visit the documentation page, and I'll teach you how to learn React. So yeah, basically I'm here to talk about React and teach you how to learn React. I don't know how much you'll learn about React from me, but I'll make sure that you learn how to learn React, if that makes sense. Yeah. So great. Like get the chat section active a little bit, so I know what you guys are thinking as I talk, because I'm improvising a lot of stuff here. So I would like the feedback. Yeah, so React buzzwords. So we have virtual DOM, we have JSX, we have components, we have states and props. We have something like called rendering, we have functional programming and class-based programming. So how many of you know, like how many of these buzzwords have you heard before? I mean, if you have attended like the HTML CSS session, I think you know what DOM is. Personally, I don't know exactly what the document object model is, but I know enough to code front end well enough. So if that makes sense, yeah. So in React, we have something called a virtual DOM. So in HTML, we have like document object model, right? You have like those like how do I call, like HTML elements, and then each element has a child, and we sort of make it like, if I were to show you how an HTML looks like, HTML code. So yeah, we have something like these tags here, and there's always some child in this tag. So I have head, and then title is the child of head. I have heading 1, and heading 1 is the child of body, and body is like the child of HTML. So React also follows this kind of model, but it follows it virtually. So when you write HTML, once you have written this tree hierarchy of HTML, it is fixed, it is static. But in React, what you can do is I can code components like this. So as you can see in this image, I have this component, and I basically create like an application which has components, and these components are basically HTML elements. And what React does is it has like a virtual document object model going on. Is that the correct full form? I think it is. Yeah. So you can manipulate DOM, and you can render components by handling them using JavaScript. So does that make sense? Like, does that make sense? I need some more responses, please. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Great. Then we have JSX. So this expression here, like div hello world, my name is prop. So basically the virtual part, yeah, I'll basically explain it on whiteboard if it is difficult to understand. So usually what happens in a static HTML page, you have this sort of tree, and then you have some subcomponents. And these are the subcomponents. If I were to show you using inspect element, as you can see, this is a subcomponent of this whole canvas. Like, yeah, this is a canvas, HTML canvas component. And this button is like in a div on this thing. So React also follows this sort of like this sort of tree based model, but what all this model is like created virtually. And why we call it virtually is because there's this sort of brain here. This is JavaScript, and when I visit a React application, basically this JavaScript gives me one page, and this has some DOM. Then when I click something here, basically this tells this JavaScript that something has been clicked, and this manipulates, this is DOM, and this is virtual DOM. So obviously this page will have HTML elements, and what JavaScript does is that it re-renders a different sort of HTML elements. So basically in static sites, you cannot change what the DOM contains afterwards. But when I use something like JavaScript, I can do this. And React has something special called virtual DOM. So this is the HTML DOM. And in React, you have a component hierarchy. which consists of React components. So DOM has HTML components, virtual DOM has React components, and these components basically these components are manipulated using JS, and this complete DOM manipulates the normal HTML DOM. It's okay if it's complicated to understand, but just uh, understand it as React has a brain, and that brain basically manipulates how you see a website. So usually when I want to change how a website looks, I have to visit a different page, or I have to call something like a JavaScript externally that changes my HTML element using something like document.get, and I basically get the element and change the inner HTML. But in React, it is the React brain that does that. Virtual DOM is the React brain. If you want to understand this in detail, there's always documentation. But like मुझे भी इतना ही पता है. And इससे deep में I don't know how to explain more deeper than this. But yeah, this is enough to use React, I think. Where is virtual DOM present? Virtual DOM is present in your React application. It is not in the browser. In the browser, you just have HTML DOM. Virtual DOM is present in JavaScript. So once a static website loads, like this is created using React. So if I use the normal inspect element here, it will just it will give me the normal HTML element. So this gives me that it is H1 here. Can you guys see? Like it is a bit small in size, but it shows me that rules of hooks is a H1. Then this is a paragraph. And if I use like there's something called React Dev Tools that lets you inspect React elements. So now I can basically inspect React elements, and I will show this in my app, my personal application here. This is the difference is not seen, but yeah, I'll continue. And if you have questions on this, we'll come back to it when I show you an example application. So yeah, as we were talking about buzzwords, I told you like components are parts of like the virtual DOM. And this is a React component. It is basically a function which returns JSX, and this is JSX. As I said, JSX is a way to write JavaScript in like to write HTML in JavaScript. And if you are like familiar with objects, I hope you are, like you must have studied Java and something which contains objects. So basically JSX is just a HTML object in JS. So I have already said that thrice, and I hope it is clear. Then we have states and props. So since this is a single page application, or like a normal application, a normal application contains like different if I say pages, it will confuse you to like normal HTML pages, but it has screens, right? And similarly, React also has screens that you make. And these screens basically need some local data or have to pass some data to other screens. So state is like the data that one screen has to maintain, like it is stored for that particular screen. And props is something that you can pass from one screen to other screen. So as this function has props, so basically props is like when other screen calls my component here, it will send some props, like some data that has to be passed from one screen to other. And this is basically that. So other component will tell me what my name is. So possibly there is a father component here that tells that, okay, you need to print Kaushal there, and Kaushal will be passed in this function. And then this function will basically print hello world, my name is Kaushal. And yeah, this is basically my you invoke your component like this. So this is a great source, like you can visit this. These are some slides from some university from Aaron Smith. And like if you want some slides like our professors give, this is a great slide, and it has some technical stuff. So yeah, you can visit this. I'll send this link in chat. And yeah, this also contains this creating a new React app part. So you can use this. So I send this link in chat, and you can visit this. Okay. So yeah, how does React react and how do I react? So the best place to start is the React documentation. So I have this open here. Okay. Yeah. So I have this open here, and there's this thing great. They have created like a great documentation and a tutorial. So you can follow this tutorial or you can follow these docs. Personally, I would say that you learn HTML, CSS, JS enough that you can just follow these docs and you don't need the tutorial, because I think they have given the tutorial for class-based components. And if you are new to React, start with like something like something like functional components and hooks, because those are obviously easier and cleaner. I will explain what hooks are in a while and what functional components are. So this is the place where you want to start. So you can use like the um, online. They have something like you can create you can use an online playground like Code Pen, Code Sandbox, and Stack Blitz. But I would suggest that use local. Like start React in your local system. Use the script called npm create React app. That will give you a nice boilerplate code for React, and then you can start creating components and a React app basically. So this is the place where you want to start. So obviously, I'll take you through this documentation. We can spend 5 to 10 minutes here. So as I said, JSX. So JSX, I'm repeating myself again here. JSX, you have objects, right? And JSX is just the HTML object that can be read by JavaScript. So you create JSX like this, and if I were to return this element or add this element for rendering in React, this will be rendered as hello world. So why JSX? So yeah, obviously it is easier to directly write HTML in JavaScript. Before you had to create, like you had to call functions or classes if you wanted to start, like if you wanted to create simple HTML elements in JavaScript, or you had to directly render those elements from like in a text in a string format, and doing that is very unsafe, because then I can just manipulate that string and I can execute harmful HTML code. So JSX, because it is easier to maintain, you can implement UI logic properly, and it is safer as well. So yeah, this is okay. No, that is a bad example. Anyways, I hope JSX is clear. Then what you have is React renders elements or components. So I have functions like this, and I have some JSX code here. And what I can do is I can just tell React DOM, the virtual DOM that we're talking about, to render this element. And what rendering element means is that it is just loading this particular component on your browser screen and putting it there. And that is what rendering means. And so there's okay. So yeah, whenever you render a component, like the virtual DOM follows something which is called the React lifecycle. So okay, before we move to the life cycle and this section, is it clear till now? Do you have any doubts? Like if anything I explained confused you, let me know, and I can sort of try to boil it down in simple language. If not, I'll continue. So yeah. Okay. So for this section, I will just drop this getting started link in the chat. So save these links, or I can send you the presentation as well. And yeah, so you learn React.js, you React from by using the React documentation. It is simple. Or I also have like some boilerplate starter code that I will show you in the next 5 to 10 minutes, and you can use that. Basically, I will use that to explain how a React app works. But before that, let's talk about the React lifecycle. So this is how the React lifecycle looks. You initialize something, like whenever I visit a page, like some React code is initialized, and whatever the page, like I have routes. Okay, I'll just open up a React code. Yeah, so I have like in if you have used some other HTML applications or like created any sort of websites, you know that there are some routes in a website, and in React also you have something like it is a virtual router, because you have, it is a single page website, right? So routing is basically getting, fetching another screen for you and loading it. It won't call any server for that. So I have these routes, and I have components assigned for these routes. So I have dashboard component here, login component here, sign up component here, and so on. So whenever I visit, basically if I visit this route, which is like find.us slash, so, and if I visit this, okay, wait. Yeah, if I visit this, my home route is opened here, and this is the React component that I have asked to render first. So whenever I visit this page, a React component is mounted or rendered. So this is a component that was mounted, and my image comes here. Then I can visit another route on this website, which is add users, and this basically took me to add user. As you can see, my page wasn't loaded. So pay attention to the favicon, or this thing here. Whenever I'm visiting new page, it is not loading anything. Everything has been already loaded, and I'm just using this as a web application. So if I were to full screen and use this, you wouldn't find any difference. So this is fast loading, and you can't like make the difference for, in a React app and a normal app, if it is full screen, basically, because everything has been loaded at the start. And so yeah, components are mounted when you visit a particular route, or open up a component. So if I were to do recommend, and if I were to begin process, what this will do is that I will stay on the same route, but this will change the components on this page. And that can be done because I have coded the JavaScript like that. So if I were to do this, yeah, the route stayed the same, but the UI changed on this page, as if I were using a simple application. And these are different components here now. So what happened is that some components were mounted. I basically pressed a button, did some update, and the DOM was updated. So the part where the DOM updates is this, like, okay, I visit this out, I press a button, and this is updated. And this process continues. So if I were to change, like the page again, if I were to go to home, all those components that were present on the page would be unmounted, and new components would be mounted. So does that make sense? Hello? Yeah. I mean, this can be a bit confusing, but let me know if that makes some sense. Yeah. So, well, this life cycle is very important in React. And basically, if you were to create, like, if you were to use some API, or any sort of different logic when you want to call some external, like when you want to call JavaScript fetch, or if you want to use some external library in React, you will be using this life cycle. So I would recommend to that you explore this page, which is state and life cycle. So this is a simplified version of life cycle, but every time what you can do is yeah. So as the life cycle state, imagine this is your component, and what the life cycle said that there is some initialization, some maintenance, and if anything changes on this, there is some updating. And once your work on this component is over, there is destruction. So there are 4 steps here, and you can use these 4 steps to do something. So basically there will be something like component will mount method in the React class based component, and you can use this function to basically do some to process some JavaScript before this component is loaded on the user screen. Whenever a component is updated, and for example, if I have a state here, state is like the memory of this screen. So state can be called as a variable here, but this variable is maintained by React DOM. This is not a JavaScript variable, and this page basically accesses data from this state, and whenever some state changes, this component is re-rendered. So on so remember that whenever a state changes, like if this page contains some state, or a parent component is sending some prop here, whenever a variable used on this page changes, this component will re-render. And you can use, like, this is also a lifecycle method, and you can like bind a function here to process something. Like if someone presses a button, or if someone, like, I have a search term here, and there was mountains in this, but someone changes to night sky. So basically my this element has updated on this page, right? And on the update of page, if I have like something like an image search going on here, I want to update these images. So once this thing changes, I can like call like I can have a hook called use effect, which basically pays attention to this variable, and whenever this variable changes, it does some JavaScript new fetching. So I will show this in the example. So you can write some, you can like hook some JavaScript code at the start of the component, when the component is maintaining itself, and when the component is destructing itself. So these are the 3 places where you can hook some JavaScript to it and call some APIs from basically this component. I hope this makes sense. So lifecycle is important because in many places you need API calls, or you need to do something before or after the component mount. Yeah, so that was mostly about life cycle. But yeah, so still we haven't, like, I haven't showed you how a complete React app looks. But as I said, we have these buzzwords, right? So you had components, you had states and props, you have rendering. So rendering is basically analogous to rendering uses lifecycle. So we have reached here, and we will see this also. But I want to make sure that you know the difference between states and props, and what React lifecycle is about. So I'll read the chat again. And okay, if this is not clear, let me know in chat. Otherwise, yeah, we can continue. I'll give you 10 seconds to respond. Okay, we'll move ahead. So what are hooks? So yeah, as I said, before we see, okay, let me reorder this. Yeah. So I will be basically in this session, I will be teaching you about functional components because they are cleaner, easier. And we'll be using something called hooks in like the example application that I'm going to explain to you. So read this. This is like the easiest way I can explain hooks. So in React, you create a lot of components, and these components are basically functions. And these functions are new to React City. So they ask you to hook them up with the React government. React government is our React DOM. And React DOM basically controls everything that happens in React. And you can control states and the lifecycle methods. So React is responsible for controlling states and lifecycle methods for your application. And basically your components want access to the state or the lifecycle. So hooks are like special functions that have been that have been given to us by React government. Like if I were to say, they are like the ward offices in your city where like your components can go to and access React functions. So yeah, this is the simplest way you can explain hooks to someone. And this is the technical part of it. As I said, hooks are special functions that allow developers to hook into state and lifecycle of React components. So basically, special things that the React land has for you. State is which are one or more data values associated with a React component instance. So think of state as your memory. Like if I was a React component, my memory would be my state, and something that my friend tells me. Like if I were to meet someone and they tell me that today is 26th June. So basically, that is the prop that was passed to me from that person into my component, or which is me. Life cycle, these are events associated with React instances. So as I explained, and I'll explain it easier because it's written here. So if whenever I'm born, like when I was born, they had to do something like birth certificate and stuff like that. So my mom kind of knew that I was coming, so she processed the birth certificate details before me. Now I am a component which is like maintaining itself. So I mean, I was almost late to this session because I went to do my Aadhaar card thing, and that is also associated in my life cycle, that I have to maintain my state and my details. So that is also a thing. And when I die, I will have to get like a death certificate for me, and I'll have to like process my will and stuff like that. So that is basically create, render, destroy that life cycle has. Today's hook, we will contain use state and use effect. There are other hooks. You can explore these in your own time. Even I don't know what some of these do. But use state basically is used to manipulate the memory of a component. Like you can give memory to a component, or and you can set that memory when some JavaScript executes. Use effect basically lets you tap into the create, render, destroy life cycle and process some JavaScript when some state of that life cycle changes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I am going to show some code now, but those were all the React concepts that you should be familiar with, or you should have some idea before you go into React. So let me know if you have any doubts in those. Let me know, or I'll switch to code. If it is clear, just write clear, and that will give me some surety. Yeah. Great. So to sum it up in some words, React has states, React has components. No, I'll start. React has virtual DOM. Virtual DOM has components. These components are made from JavaScript and JSX. Each component has a life cycle, and each component has some memory and some data that can be passed from their parents or their friend components. This is what we studied so far. So let's see some code. So yeah, I hope this is nice and clear and big in size. Yeah, so this is a GitHub repository, and you can clone this to learn. So I choose this. This is forked from one of my friend's repository, and he created this while he was learning React. So I thought I'll just use something which some beginner has already created so that you guys can explore it. And I say, as we talk, like React has two ways of programming, right? So you have something like class-based components and functional components. So as the name suggests, in class-based components, you need to create classes, and class-based components have complicated lifecycle method functions, and you need to write like constructors for them. You need to bind functions in class-based components. So this project basically contains both. Like I have places where I have written functional code and commented out the class-based variant of it, and I have a place where I have written class-based code and commented the functional variant of it. And we'll see that functional programming always is cleaner and simpler to understand. So let's start. So this is like a simple React file structure. Yeah. So you have something like public, and these files are files that you can serve. These are static files that you can serve basically. And src is the directory that contains all your code. So I have this directory called components, and I have something called package.json. So package.json contains all the dependencies that you have. So I'm using React. I'm using something called Axios. Axios is for API calls, and I'm using semantic UI CSS. So as we said, like you can just include CSS and HTML in JavaScript. So yeah. So package JSON basically tells you what scripts you can run, what packages you have, what is the name of your application, and basically, yeah, what environments should it run in. So this says that it should run in last one Chrome version, last one Firefox, etc., etc. Then you have something like package lock.json. Don't mess with this file. This is automatically created. You don't have to. So your React app starts with index.js. And basically index.js is created to you automatically. You don't have to change anything in this index.js unless you are using something like, yeah, you will know when to change, make change in index.js. Otherwise, don't. Like if you are using some other packages like material UI, or you want something like a React context, you will have to change it here. But for beginners, no need to change this. We start with the app.js, and app.js is basically the function. Like I don't have a router in this application, so this is like a single page application. So I'll just run this. So npm start is the script that you use to run any sort of JavaScript applications. So npm start will be used with Node applications as well, and it is used with React applications also. And this application was created using the bootstrap thing that they have created, which is create React app. So it is simple. You just have to write npm create React app, and it will create this sort of directory for you that contains React boilerplate. So yeah, we start with app, and we start with like the application function. And this is a function because as I said, you create components in React as functions. So whatever JSX that I will return in this function will be rendered on screen. So basically I am returning a div, and this div contains search bar component, and I am passing a prop to this component, which is like the function on search submit. I have something called image list component, and I'm passing images to this component. So this is how you this is how you pass props to a different component. So this is my application. This is basically telling you like this is an image search application. So if I search for something like garden, it will search for images of garden. And if I search for something else, then this will give you something else. But initially, see this, whenever I load this page, it gives me images of night sky. And why is this? So this is because I have used react.useEffect. This is a hook. This is how you use a hook. It is like a function in React module. You pass a function to it, and then you pass something called dependency array. So this is an arrow function. I hope you are familiar with what arrow functions are. Like I hope it was taught in like the JavaScript session. And basically in this use effect, I am calling the API and I am setting my state here. So my query is night sky, and if response.data.result, so if this API calls gives me some results, I am doing set image response.data.result. So what is this function called set image? So this is basically my state. So my application contains like whenever you use react.set react.use state, you initialize it like this const images. This is the name of your variable that will contain your state data, and this is the function that will set your state. So I'm just initializing this as a simple empty array, and whenever I have new data in this, I am just setting my image to all the new data that this API returned me. And what this API is returning me is like a lots of URLs. So we go back to the whiteboard. So what is happening here is that I have this application that loads at the start, and I have a search bar here, big search bar, and I have some images. So whenever this is me, I open this thing in my browser, and before loading, this is the loading part. Before loading, it knows that it needs to mount the app component on the screen. But before the app component is mounted, I have used something like use effect hook, and this use effect hook I have given like empty array here. I have given like a simple empty array. So this knows that I need to perform this thing only at the start of the life cycle. So before this app is put on your screen, my JavaScript function will be executed, which is my API call. Once my API call is executed, I also have something called image state in this component. So this JavaScript will set my image state, and basically this image is a list. This contains all the URLs of the images that you are seeing on your screen, right? So these URLs. So then I have two components here: search bar component and image list component. And I have created these components here. So search bar component also has some logic here. So this is a class-based component, and I have also written like the functional component here if you want to see what this is. This has, and this basically has some HTML, not HTML, JSX. If I were to tell the technical term, this is JSX, and I'm returning this JSX from here. So this JSX is being written. This has image search. This has some input, and basically app, which is a parent component, is calling search, which is a child component, and passing a callback function here. Callback function. So this is basically a function that I'm passing to a child component, and this child component can then call a function of the parent component. Then image list, images is equals to images. So I have this state here, images, and basically my JavaScript at the start has set this state, basically image state, and then this image is being passed to a component here, which is responsible for displaying images. So I hope this is clear. Now regarding the callback function, so basically callback functions are what? So imagine this is a parent function. This is a parent, and basically this guy creates a button. This is a button, okay? And this is a child component. And basically he gives this remote to the child and lets the child know that whenever you are in danger, press this button and I will do something, like I will come to you. And basically in React also you can pass these sort of callback functions to child components that the child component can then call, and the parent does something. So similarly in this case, this function on search submit is written in the parent thing, and I'm passing it to the child. So whenever I have this, whenever I add some text and I press enter, the text is being entered in the child component, but the API call is in the parent component. So whenever I press enter, this function, this child, will basically press the button that was given to it by the parent. Okay. So yeah. So these are the hooks. This is the use state hook. You can use this to give memory to your component. This is the use effect hook that you use to tap into life cycle of React. And this is a callback function that basically a parent can provide to a child component. And this is an example of function-based programming in React. I have also some in this thing you have like a class-based component. So in class-based component you had like states, and you had a render method that basically used to return the JSX for you. And I have image list. So image list is again a functional component. So I am passing some props, and basically I pass the image list here, and I am using map method. So map method, this is to iterate on the list that I passed and render image card component. So this is something that that is like the advantage of React. So what I can have is I can have a list of data, and I can iterate on this list using JavaScript, and I can just render HTML here for this. So I just wrote in this application, I wrote a single line of code to show this image, and I wrote this code in a loop, so all these images are being displayed here. So clone this repo and explore this, see what stuff is happening here, and yeah, this is an example repository that I created for you. So you can explore this. I've already sent the link in chat. Are there any questions in chat? On this? If not, basically we were here. So as you might have guessed, React is quite overwhelming, but I think you learn with experience, and once you create 5-6 React apps, you'll understand the tricks. So now if someone comes with me, if someone gives me a React error, I know what is the problem because I have enough experience, and I have failed enough times to know that, okay, this thing fails and what is the solution for that. So yeah, if you want to see, I can show you some hacky code that I wrote, and yeah, programming is fun. Yeah, so looping and showing can also be done through, yeah, you can do it. Basically, any sort of React framework can do that. So you can render more components by just looping on it and providing different sort of data. So that is like the first advantage that comes with React. And this also comes with other frameworks such as Django. Django has DTL, Django template language, which allows you to loop and render elements like this. Then Vue also has something, each framework, basically Svelte also has this. So anything that is not static HTML, CSS, and JS has this looping concept. So what would you like to see? I can show you some code, or I can show you how to debug, how to see a React, how what goes on in React, and then we can have some questions. So should I do we have enough time that I can show both? I can show some code and I can show some applications.
Yes. So yeah, we do.
Okay. So I'll start with showing some code. Yeah, so this is an application that I created. It is not up. Okay, it is up. So what this contains is that you have a map here, and basically this showed you places where you can find street musicians or street performers, and this map was supposed to have some data that is not working, but something that is working is yeah, so and this location search works. So whenever I write something here, let's write Vadodara and search. So this calls something called radar API, and this gives me result. And this basically updates the thing on the map. So everything here is done using React, and this uses state, use effects, and callback functions also. So this code might be complicated, but you have you have something like screens in your React application. So these are all my screens. So the thing that you see initially here is my dashboard. So if I can show you this, this is my dashboard code. This has some state. So basically I am taking the user's location from browser, and that is done using use effect, which I showed. I have an empty array here, empty dependency array, and whenever the site loads, before the site loads, I am taking the user's location from browser. So you can do that using simple JavaScript, but the important thing to see here is that I have used use effect here. I have also used a different kind of hook, which is called use timeout. And use timeout basically executes every 120 seconds, and it takes the new browser location. So if you were to visit this website from a mobile device and you were traveling, my website can basically update your location based on like time. So use effect updates itself when something in the dependency array changes. Like if I had a state here, it would change. It would call this JavaScript when my state changes. But use timeout is a hook that is basically a custom hook. But what this does is it executes this JavaScript on my page every X seconds. So this is an example of a different kind of hook that I've used. Then here you have something like make styles hook also. So this comes with multi-daily UI. So there are different sorts of hooks that you can explore. And this is basically React code. So it is basically HTML written as JSX, and there are some images here. So this is not optimized code. I can just loop this in a for loop, and I will show you an example of that. So that example is when I search for location, like the radar.io thing gives like 10 results, and to show those results in a list, I can just loop on them. Yeah, so I'm calling the radar.io API here, and basically I have this list.map list item. So you can use something like javascript.map to map this HTML here. So for every entry in my list, this HTML will be rendered. So if I have 10 elements in this list, basically this HTML will be printed, like not printed, will be rendered 10 times. So this is some code. Like I have some other React code on my GitHub as well that you can see. Some of it is complicated, but like most of the code is functional code with hooks. And I think that will be something useful for you, because this tutorial gives you class-based components, and class-based components are a little bit messy. So I recommend that you start learning with the functional components only. Then let's try to debug a React app. So basically this is a React app, right? And you have something like inspect tools, and I can inspect this thing, and this will basically show me the HTML code here. As you can see, the normal inspect gives HTML code. But like we can also inspect React. So let me visit a page where we have some state. So I have this state here, and you can like download this React DevTools extension. It is really great, and I can inspect React elements. So as you can see, like these are like React. These are React elements. You can see the React DOM basically here. So these are all the React elements that we have here. They are anonymous because okay, some rendering that is being done by React, but I hope I can find the named component. So yeah, as you can see, this has some props, and yeah, so this is an input component in React. It has some props, children and value null. Yeah, so yeah, so this is like a React component SE, which is my route. and I have some props here, and I have some state also. So 1, 2, 2. So this state 2 is basically here. This state 2 is about number of teams, and true is about this. So you can basically tap into like what the React DOM is rendering, and you can see what hooks are there in your application and what props are being passed to this particular component. And this is the component hierarchy. Like it is very big, so you have to search for your components using this feature that I used, and it took me some time. So it takes some time to search for the proper component which contains your hook data and state data, and this is useful when you are debugging React application. Yeah, so that's mostly about it. There's also this extension which lets you know if a website is using React or not, and most of the websites use React, so it is interesting to inspect them also. So yeah, that's mostly it. Like let me know if you have any questions in chat, so we can do some Q&A for 5 to 10 minutes.
Also, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions.
Yeah, feel free. Anything, like it doesn't even have to be related to React or something technical. You can just ask me anything.
Hello.
Yeah.
So I just had a question that I'm assuming that in large scale applications, there would be like many levels of components, right? There would be like child components, and there will be multiple child components for a specific component. So how do we, it would be very difficult to manage the state, right? For each of those components to access that child component state from like 2 nodes above in the tree. So
yeah, so I mean yeah, so for that, like so what this sorry, I don't know your name, but what this person is asking is I have components like this, right? And I have some child components, and basically this component has some data that has to be passed to this component, and then this component has some data that has to be passed to this component, and this basically okay, this problem arises when you have a very big application and you have lots of components. And already, as we saw, like the React tree in like the browser inspect, that there were already many components which were like this. So this was the parent, and all these like in this order are its child. So I want to pass some data from this component to this component, and then this component to this component. So this is difficult because then I'll have to use like callback function from this to this and this to this, or I'll have to provide a callback function that gives me data from here to here, and it will be a big mess. So to stop creating like to do away with this mess, you can use something like Redux, or you can use React context. So basically what that lets you do is that you have something like this is the React DOM, and you can have some sort of global state here, and your component can then put some data in this global state, and then this component can get some data from this global state here. So it is basically like a global database for React, and you can use Redux for this, or you can use like a React context, which is like a type of hook. So I haven't like at like my level where I have created applications, I just had to use like React context once, and that was for my SE project, which was fairly large. But yeah, I mean, if you're just starting with React, you don't need Redux or React context. But if you want to like learn React in depth, like I would recommend exploring them.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Some kid is asking, I'm lately hearing a lot about Next.js. How different is it from React? So I'm not much aware about Next.js, but what I have heard is that Next.js is server-side rendering. But like let's explore. It's like server-side React, and it lets you yeah, so it enables functionality of server-side rendering. So like the React that we code, what happens is that the complete website, like or the complete application is loaded on your browser, and then you travel in that application. And I think what Next.js does, like server side rendering, means that the application loads in the server, and then you travel that application on the server. So that is the difference in Next.js and React.js. Interestingly, there's something called Gatsby also. So whenever you sort of code front end, this will always be the question, like whether I should use React.js, whether I should use Next.js, or whether I should use Gatsby. And Gatsby is like a static website generator. I have personally used Gatsby, and you can use Gatsby when you want to generate pages statically from JSON data or Markdown data. And it is basically used for that. So there are some great Gatsby websites that you can use. Most of the documentations, I think most of the documentation websites use Gatsby because they already have some documentation data in Markdown form or in JSON form. And then you can map it using like something like a static site generator. Yeah, any more questions? Like I mean, we are joined by a lot of first years today, so I would recommend, it would be great if you could ask something about React or something like that would show. Yeah, which OS am I using? I'm using Pop OS. It is not the latest version. I still need to update to 21.4. Views on GitHub Copilot. Okay. It's a great invention, obviously. Like someone that can like an AI that can do pair programming for you. It's great, but then it is also dangerous because then where will like the normal programmers go? But as far as I've explored, like heard about GitHub Copilot in the last 2 days that it has released, they are saying that like it is only good to recommend like the boilerplate part of the code. Like if I were to find a code for intersection of two arrays, then it can just give me the boilerplate of it, and I'll still have to improve the logic or select from like the 10 to 20 suggestion it gives. So let's I mean let's see, like a GitHub Copilot is going to be interesting. Push bad code on GitHub. Yeah, I mean what exactly is the question? Like, are you asking my views on pushing bad code on GitHub? So I'll just say that no code is bad. If it works, it works, and you can always improve it later on when you are scaling your application or anything like that. Yeah, can't we have website with only men instead of man? I mean, does React make it easy for something else? You can't have a website with only men. No, that doesn't work. You either need Angular, you either need Svelte, you either need React, or you need HTML, CSS, JS. So you are going to need something for the front end, and React is just one easy way of coding that front end for you. React makes it easy. Yes, React makes it easy to handle UI components. Like we have the whole React DOM thing going on. You have states, props, and you can have like globals. As I said, you can use Redux also, and all this makes it easy. And now, like with the coming of functional components and hooks, it is very easy to make like a React front end. Possibly, if you were to write something of the same sort in Django and Django template language, it will be more tiring, and you'll have to do more work if compared to something like if you were to spin up a fast API server, and if you were to make something make a front end using React.js and Material UI. So that will obviously be easier. Or yeah, so like Mongo Express node is just a way of doing backend, and for the front end you need something. Differences between functional and class components. Yeah, so in React functional components, you just return JSX from a function, and you have some like some JavaScript in that function for conditional rendering and some simple logic. Functions are cleaner, and whenever you want to tap into a React lifecycle or React features using functional components, you use React hooks. In class-based components, React has created, like React has something called React.component class. You inherit that class for your new class, and to use state in class-based components, you have to like create a state in that class using class constructor, and you can use that class then has some function which are binded to it, which are called like component did mount, component did update, component will mount, component I don't know if it's did destroy or yeah, there's something for the dying part also. So it has like complex 8 to 10 life cycle methods, that class. You have to create constructors. And so yeah, when we didn't have hooks, class-based components were the way to go. They were standard when you had to create any complicated React application. But that's it. Like functional components are functions, class components are classes. And as I said, like they have classes have some special features, and functions have hooks and some simple JavaScript processing. Yeah, so also like regarding the difference between Next.js and React.js, I think Devarsh has explained it fabulously in the chat. Like in Next, it basically sends only the required data for each request sent to the server, while React completely loads the website in your browser. Yeah, so I didn't know that you can use both worlds in Next. So probably, I mean, if you were to scale your application, using Next might be better option than using React. Yeah, so I mean that's it from my side, and
I
yeah.
think that even as we have participants, they start working and progressing on their projects, they might face some doubts and like ask that time at that time. And thanks a lot, Kaushal bhai, for such a wonderful, amazing session. I mean, the Iron Man